Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on February 9th, 2022 at approximately 8:59 a.m. PST. Well, I spent most of yesterday's video was really about the journey that I had been on as far as the evolution of the Yldrbac Chronicles. Now, getting back to the point in hand. Okay, this world is changing, and I'm very happy to say it's becoming more and more obvious. Although there's something you got to remember about a lot of the posts that are going on, a lot of the public opinion. Now, frankly, from my standpoint, you still pay attention to to what's being said on the news, but you don't put any more weight behind it than what you see in the public news, in the social medias and what have you. Because when you're taking a look at the multimedia, at the mega media, what you're looking at is these people have bills to pay. They have to follow guidelines set by somebody above them. When you're looking at the social media, you have to follow guidelines based on the law, not based on public acceptance or on your boss's acceptance. But in all cases, you still have to realize whatever you're saying, you cannot unsay. Whatever you know, you cannot unknow. You can forget. The information is still there, but we'll get into that in a different video. Okay. Now, do understand, when I talk about my being a spiritual guide, this is because the tools that I offer are the ones I personally am going to use. The philosophies I have in life are the ones I personally live by. Okay. So when you're looking at posting something, when you're looking at saying something, okay, to anybody, the social media and the mainstream media have the same impact in my eyes. Pay attention to what they're saying, note it, keep it in check, but do not make the mistake of taking everything at gospel. Okay, what's being said is still open to questioning. Now, I've always agreed with this one statement I saw posted that said I would rather have questions without answers, questions that cannot be answered, than answers that cannot be questioned. Okay, now this started when I was a kid. So when you're looking at talking to people, when you're looking at talking to the way that when you're talking to people about what's going on in their life, okay, and what you're seeing happen, understand everybody, along with free will, you have the freedom to say or think what you will. What you don't have is the freedom to say what you will without consequences. You are not free from the consequences of what you say. So think carefully before you speak. Okay, now I'm guilty of it as much as the next person, of speaking first and thinking second. I've always held it's not a question of will I put my foot in my mouth. It's a question of how I'm going to get the other one in there beside it. Okay, but when you're looking at what is being posted, question everything. Okay, do not take it for granted that just because it's posted or just because it's announced on the news, don't take it for granted that that is the reality behind it. Okay, everybody interprets life through their own experiences. And this is why I say don't take my word for it. Double check your own sources, check your own path. Okay, the information you get. I've heard two conflicting pieces of information regarding this convoy. Okay, much of the mainstream media have said, from what I gather, have said that it was the truckers that defaced the Terry Fox memorial and the tomb of the unknown soldier. Okay. And then they also said that it was truckers that came in and cleaned it up. The problem with that is the other side is that there are accusations that other people that it was not the truckers that defaced these statues. It wasn't the truckers, it was other people. The important thing to keep in mind here is not who did it as far as pointing the finger. The thing to look at is that it is something that should never have been done. Period. Whether you agree with the convoy or not, whether you agree with what's going on in society or not, is not the point. The point that you have to take a look at is, are you treating the people around you in the way you personally desire to be treated? If you're against wearing a mask, okay, or if you're against the vaccine for you, because you've got the freedom to have the vaccine or not have the vaccine, you've got the freedom, you've got the right to not wear a mask if you choose not to. Absolutely you do, but if you've got the right to do that, understand other people have the right to go the other direction. Okay. And yeah, technically that applies on the road as well. The rule of the road in Canada says you drive on the right. And that's where you go. Now, you theoretically have the right to drive on the left, but you won't get away with it for very long in most cases. Okay. You have the right to your own beliefs. You have the right to your own choices of action. But the consequences are the consequences. Okay. And where we have a problem is when those consequences are dictated based on what your income is. Okay, or based on what your political alignment is. Okay. So you absolutely have the right to state your own opinion. Okay, and a lot of military died making certain you had that right. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why I do tell people I'm a very staunch supporter of the people that choose to go into the military to defend their country, to defend their people and their families. I absolutely support them. Okay, I do not, it's not a question of supporting the rest of the military. It's a question of, do I question the motives and directives of the upper echelon? Absolutely. Much like I support people going into politics to try and get society running smoothly. Okay, do I question the motives of the people at the upper end? You bet. Because many times these things are not thought through, in my opinion. But it is strictly my opinion. Okay, I don't put any more weight behind somebody's value as an individual based on what position in life they have, okay, or what kind of income they've got. But I finally reached a point in my life, and it's one I do truly hope you all figure out and you all get to that point. I finally got to the point in my life where I'm quite content with my outlook, okay, with the way I look at the world. Yes, it's jaded in many ways, okay, and I am looking to find a way to alter that jaded approach. But unfortunately, that relies on what I see. Now, bear in mind, I'm rather isolated. What I see is a little limited, but what you got to take a look at is you're out and about. Take a look at the way you're treating people. Take a look at the way you're treating the shop that you're going into. Okay, for instance, if you're going into a grocery store and you pick food up, pick up something because you're thinking about buying it. Okay, and you're still right there at the same shelf. You pick it up, you look at it, you go, nope, I'm not going to buy this. Now, that's perfectly fine. What's not perfectly fine is putting that thing back on a different shelf right when you're right there. You pull it off the second shelf. Let's put it on the fourth shelf down over, three aisles down. Not acceptable. You wouldn't appreciate if somebody came in, if you own a shop, you certainly wouldn't appreciate it if somebody came in and did that to your place. Okay. A very simple rule. Okay, and this is one that applies to even in your own home, quite frankly. If you move it, put it back. Okay, it's that simple. But, you've got the right, you've got the freedom to do what you will. but you don't have freedom from the consequences. Okay, and this is what people have to realize. Now, fortunately, society is starting to stand together. Okay, we do seem to have a movement going on right now that is gaining momentum in spite of all the restrictions. Okay, it is gaining new momentum. This convoy, in case you hadn't noticed, is affecting a lot more people than just the truckers. It just so happens that the truckers are the ones that have spearheaded it. And let's face it, seeing a convoy of, a major convoy of, of tractor trailers driving down the road is far more physically imposing than seeing a whole line of mini miners driving down the road. Okay, it just has a much bigger, visually imposing image. Okay, but we're now seeing it's not just the truckers. Okay, there are lots of people that are supporting them. Okay, that are really pushing with the whole idea of opening things up. Now, I just got word that apparently, and bear in mind, I don't watch the news. Okay, I really don't. I catch bits and pieces on the internet. And I'll look at a few things. But the reality is, do I have news on the television? Not at all. Do I have even CNN or anything like that programmed into my computer? No. But it's by the sounds of it, I caught one just the other day, and apparently they're even having conflicts now about this whole mandate thing right on the floor of the House of Commons. Okay, now the reality of it is, when you take society and you force it into a situation, it will, as I warned people 2 years ago, there will come a point when society will say we've had enough. That point has been reached. Now, I saw a post one day that described it really well. You have a mass of people all bowed down, and you've got this one individual standing at the head of the line with a whip. And this whole mass of people all bowed down, except one person. Okay. And the next frame, it shows that whole mass of people and half a dozen people standing up, and still the one guy at the whip. Okay. Third frame, you had a whole pile of people standing. There were a couple of people bowed down, and a mass of people standing up, and the guy with the whip. And the fourth frame showed everybody standing up, and the guy with the whip bowed down. What this tells you is the real power is when people pull together. Okay. And this is what I mean by changing the energy in society, the energy flow, the way that things are moving. Okay. Now, you have the option, okay, of doing what you will. But this is, the whole convoy thing has exploded. Okay. It hasn't stopped in spite of the extra laws and what have you, and the extra mandates are being put in. It hasn't slowed it down much by the look of it. Okay. And we have the same problem arising, or the same benefit, you call it. Okay. This is a movement that says people around the world are getting to the point where it's like, okay, yes, we've got a very deadly disease here. There's no question, COVID itself is a bad illness. There's no question cancer is a bad illness. Okay, diabetes is a pain in the neck. These are realities. Okay, but they cannot be permitted to dictate how your life is going to unfold. Okay, now I'm a bad example where it comes to medical and following what the doctors say in the first place. Okay, even when my life is, according to them, theoretically in trouble. Okay, because I found that what I feel here and the way I've managed to manifest things, I can modify a lot of it. So can you. You've got the same capacity. But where it comes to certain things, like illnesses, absolutely, doctors are still useful. I would not want a backwoods mechanic having been the one to bolt my arm back in place when I broke it. Okay, when I had the major heart attack and went in into the hospital, absolutely, the doctors did what they could to put things back together. Now, I'm a bad example. I don't listen to doctors well, so the fact I went might give you an idea. But you have the right to have your own opinion. Absolutely. Okay, and I'm going to punch another hole in things here. I don't know if I'll do it today. We'll see. But you do not have, you aren't, much as you've got the right and you have the freedom to make your own choices, you do not have the freedom to make said choices with no consequence. Whatever you do, there will be a consequence. Okay, now if that consequence is only a slap on the wrist, the odds are it's not going to sink in. Okay, at least not by human standards. Now, I've seen this same pattern happen, and every time the people in control reach a certain point where they've gone from protecting or working for the people to oppressing or force-feeding doctrines down their throats, every time they do that, society reaches a point where they finally say, enough is enough. I'm not doing it. Now, the people that started doing that early on, the people that early on started to do that, hats off to them for doing so, especially when we look at this convoy right now. My understanding from the social media is the truckers and the people on the convoy have been doing virtually everything by the book. Okay, now there is media that says otherwise. There will always be media that says otherwise. Media being people that don't see it the same way. But like my father used to put it, this would be a really, really boring world if everybody were to look at the world in the same fashion. If everybody was to do things the same way, we'd have a problem. Well, that didn't work well. So, we have this situation where the world is changing. And it's actually thanks to you guys. Okay. You're absolutely doing things the right way. Now, you'll notice, I'm not one to tell you, don't go to this church, don't vote for this person. I'm not going to make that decision for you. Have I done things that I look back at now and go, well, that was really dense? Certainly. Everybody has. Okay, but I've finally got to a point where I'm content with me. I'm no longer trying to make certain that society agrees with the way I look at the world. I'm just simply, it took me a long time to get in front of the videos, and amazingly enough, I'm approaching 1 year. Okay, March 6th of 2021 was when I started doing these videos. Now, they are live recordings, meaning when I get done, I only go back, double check the date, and then post it as is. I don't edit a thing. Okay. Now, the reality of it is, a lot of the information I talk about, I do put into books. Okay, into booklets and what have you. If you look at the bottom of this video, you'll see a whole list of different publications that are already in print. They can be ordered directly through me. Okay, and absolutely right below that, there's a list of different ways of getting a hold of me. So it's not like I'm trying to hide from people. Aside from physically, I don't leave the house much. Okay, now there are some drawbacks to that, and I'll leave those to your imagination. So yeah, I'm absolutely asking, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, because there's a lot of information coming out. I'm not telling people what you have to do. Just opening doors and saying, hey, have you looked at this? Okay, I recently found that the Liberal Party in Canada, apparently there's a new party coming out that's very similar, which tells me that much like the religious groups, the political parties up here are starting to fracture. This tells you they're doing something that is absolutely fundamentally ineffective. Okay, because when you've got laws being made that do not apply to everybody, you will create a fracture in the society. You absolutely will. And in this case, it's a political party that seems to be fracturing. Okay. And when you have that happen, you have to start looking at what the side effects are going to be. Because the fact that that is happening does tell you that there are changes coming. And society, the energy that is making civilization what it is shifting gears. It is absolutely changing direction. And because of that, we are going to find that civilization takes an interesting turn for the better pretty quick. I'm looking for my elbows. It's silly. This is more habit, I think, half the time than anything else. Okay, I should probably get up and close that blind. I'm just too lazy. Okay, but when you're looking at the world, okay, you have the choice to do what you will, but it is absolutely imperative at this point that you take responsibility for your own actions, for your own words. Okay. There was a restaurant in town. I'm not going to bother with the name for it. There was a restaurant I used to go to. When the mandates came out that said you couldn't go until you were double vaccinated, I quit going. Okay. In all fairness, for me, that worked out really well. It saved me $300 to $400 a month. Okay. Yeah, I was spending way too much, but then I don't like to cook. Okay. So net result was I went, I stopped going. Will I go back to them once that mandate comes down? Absolutely. Will it come down in time? The answer is yes. Okay. It's just like when I was living way back 700 years ago when the Black Death hit. In time, it went away. Okay. We dealt with it. Mankind got on with life. And life will return to that side of life being normal. What I hope it never gets back to is the amount of greed and debauchery that was there before COVID hit. Okay, before this convoy hit, there was a staggering amount of selfishness going on. This convoy has galvanized the communities up here. And from what I gather, it's having one heck of an impact on the world at large, where people are noticing these changes and are starting to act on them. They are just a small microcosm of society. Okay, because you got to realize that the convoy encompasses people from every age bracket, every income bracket. Not every age bracket, because let's face it, you just don't have truckers that are only 3 years old. But people that are of age, all the way from the earliest they can get a license, all the way to retired peoples. This is pulling people from that whole age bracket, every walk of life, every religious belief, every income bracket. Okay. And pulling them all together on a common thread. And as I said, in order for society to change, it's going to require everybody. So we have to look at the implications here. Now, of course, we have to realize all these truckers are doing this thing. Okay, which means they're not delivering, which means your deliveries are being delayed. So is this just about them understanding they don't get paid if they're on the convoy? Okay, so they're sinking their money in. You have your priorities. I've got my priorities. I've made it very clear, as far as I'm concerned, the political system, the religious system, the school system, and the legal system have all failed very badly. Now, the legal system is really tied tightly to the political system. And again, like I've told many of the first responders, many of the police I've talked to, if they don't have somebody they're trying to protect, I would rather they sit and have coffee. I don't mind paying for them to sit down and do nothing if the job is already done. Okay. Now, the reality is it's going to take all of us working together to make this world a better world. Okay, and that is the one primary reason I came back to this life this time, is to pass on this simple message. Working together, we can make this a better world for most people. But part of that trick is taking responsibility for your own actions, your own words. Okay, now I only follow 3 laws in life. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Energy out, energy in. Now, this means I only have 3 laws that I have to worry about. Do they encompass all the ones that you've got? Absolutely. Okay. Am I a believer in God, in Jesus? You bet. Okay. And I don't, to me, it doesn't matter what proof comes up. Okay. I've got my own beliefs. I believe in UFOs, etc. Otherwise, I wouldn't be dealing with consulting people on UFO interactions, on abductions, on technologies, on different racial cultures. I don't see a difference from one to the next. I mean, don't get me wrong. Physical configurations are pretty obvious. Okay. But, people look down on people for just about any reason. And that, unfortunately, a lot of that is taught by the parents, by the school system, by the spiritual, and by the religious system, and sadly, many times by the political system. This is all changing. This world is going through an absolute trial by fire right now, but we are getting through it. And that's because people are uniting. Yes, they've absolutely drawn lines. There have been conflicts, and there virtually always will be conflicts. When you have two people with free will and the freedom to say what they will, okay, you end up with some conflicts, which is where the legal and the political system does come into line. Going, if they're doing it right, they're actually there to help defend your right to do that, to have your opinion. Unfortunately, it's gone a little sideways over the last couple of years, and many of people's rights were pulled away from them, and they shouldn't have been. The only thing I will say right from the get-go that was done that was absolutely on the money was when people started being told, keep your distance from people. Okay, when you're dealing with a medical issue that you don't understand, keeping separated stops it from spreading because it can't get that far. They pull a neat little idea in school, right? Where we used to go when I was in high school, even in elementary school, they'd get all the students in the gym. And then they'd say, okay, now stick your hands out beside you. Okay, put them out as far as you can and turn slowly in a circle. If you make contact with somebody, back away from them. Now, if you think about the length of the arm for an elementary student, that's a 4-foot safety zone right there. As you get taller, it's longer. Okay, and that is the whole issue. If you keep distance, it cuts down on the spread of illness. This is just a matter of normalcy, unless the illness is airborne, of course. Okay, but the fact is that working together, we can make this a better world. Okay, and it's time for people, and it's fortunately time people are finally starting to do it. That people are starting to look at this and go, okay, this is what we're doing. Okay, hats off to you. Keep up the good work. Now, I will be back again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.